Hello, everyone. This is Will with Hook and Push Gaming, and welcome to another episode of MTG News. Today we have a new banned and restricted announcement from Wizards that affects Standard, Pioneer, Historic, and Brawl. I won't be talking about Pioneer much, although I will mention something that I think will have an implication for Arena, is that the Hidden Hand has been banned from Pioneer. Historic is well on its way to becoming Pioneer, so I think the fact that they've banned Kethis in Pioneer, that may say something for the very common Kethis combo deck that's in Historic right now. Granted, Pioneer has a lot more resources than Historic does, but like I said, we're well on our way to that. We'll look over that section of the Pioneer announcement when we get there, but we'll just go through everything. So for Standard, Wilderness Reclamation, Growth Spiral, Teferi Time Raveler, and Cauldron Familiar are all banned. In Historic, Wilderness Reclamation and Teferi are suspended, and in Brawl, Teferi is banned. Teferi Time Raveler, that is. Okay, so Standard. Yeah, so they've noticed they were normally going to wait until rotation, which is coming next month with Zendikar Rising. But with how quickly things move in the digital formats and with how problematic these cards have been for a long time, that they're banning the aforementioned cards. Ramp decks using Growth Spiral together made up 68% of the day one metagame at the Players' Tour Finals, and represent approximately 25 to 30% of the metagame at Mythic ranking on the Arena ladder. Okay, that's just nuts. 68%. Within that category, Wilderness Reclamation decks have been considered the strongest archetype by much of the competitive community, making up 54% of the metagame at the Players' Tour Finals and about 15% of the Mythic metagame on Arena. In order to remove Reclamation decks from this most played spot, and to reduce the metagame share of ramp decks in general, Wilderness Reclamation and Growth Spiral are banned. I would broaden, or I would narrow, Wilderness Reclamation is a deck unto itself. Yes, it is a ramp piece of sorts, but mainly it is its own, named deck, Team of Reclamation, 4-color Reclamation. That the deck is built around getting a couple of those in play and then playing a massive explosion to win the game that way. That's almost a combo deck in that respect, and less of a ramp deck of, let's just play Ugin or a massive Hydroid Krasis or any number of other things you can do with a lot of mana. The Reclamation deck has that very specific win condition in mind. So it's not necessarily, yes, it is a ramp deck, but it's also its own thing. Yeah, Growth Spiral really enables pretty much every ramp deck imaginable, and at 2 mana it's not just Growth Spiral, because it's that Simic ramp play is turn 1 Arboreal Grazer or Mana Dork, turn 2 Growth Spiral, turn 3 Uro. That just really gets out of hand very quickly. So, yeah, so those bans make a lot of sense. This one with Cauldron Familiar wasn't super clear to me until I read a little bit more. Another archetype that has maintained a high win rate over a long period of time is Black-Red or Jund Sacrifice. That's a little unclear to someone that's not well-versed in the game, because Jund is Black-Red-Green, but whatever. So it's a little confusing there. Featuring the Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven combo. Cat Oven, very popular. In addition to having high overall win rates, these decks put considerable pressure on aggressive and mid-range creature decks. Further, the number of triggers generated by these decks can be cumbersome for both players in digital play. To weaken these sacrifice strategies, open up more metagame diversity, and create a more fun gameplay environment, Cauldron Familiar is banned. Like I said, I didn't think of Cat Oven as being super problematic, But when they mentioned digital formats, I was like, yeah, it is kind of annoying being on the other end of the cat oven combo, especially if there are also connection issues or someone is not super familiar with it. Because paper, it would just be like, okay, on your end step, witch's oven, sack the cat, sack the food token, cat comes back. Takes like a second. Whereas in Arena, it's on your end step, I'm clicking on witch's oven. Do you have a response to that? No, you don't. I'm sacking Cauldron Familiar. Do you have a response to that? Now I'm bringing the cat back. I need to sacrifice this food token. Like it turns the game into a bit of a slog. So it does. I get it for digital. At least that's been my Arena experience. I don't play MTGO, but I'm imagining it's similar. Finally, we'll also be removing Teferi Time Raveler from the environment. We've often heard the feedback that the repetitive play patterns and reduced capability for interaction that Teferi Time Raveler can create feel oppressive and limiting. That is an understatement. People have been complaining about Teferi Time Raveler since it came out in War of the Spark. It along with Reclamation, there have been a lot of complaints about those two cards pretty much since the word go. The one that was the most telling about Wilderness Reclamation was that the fact that they banned Fires of Invention but not Wilderness Reclamation. Because they're remarkably similar cards, right? If anything, I would argue Wilderness Reclamation is better than Fires of Invention, because if you play 2 Fires of Invention, that does nothing. You play 2 Wilderness Reclamations, you get to double your mana. Well, not double it on top of itself, but you get all of your mana again, which leads to a bigger explosion. So, anyway, yeah, that was a frustrating thing when Fires was banned, but not Reclamation. So I think they're just playing catch up here, really, with how much that Teferi and Reclamation have created problems for the meta. While we considered banning Teferi in past updates, one reason we didn't was evidence that it was helping hold Reclamation decks in check. With Reclamation leaving the environment, we feel it's also time for the standard metagame to move on without Teferi Time Raveler. And of course, the thing I thought was funny about this statement was how strong 4-color Reclamation had become, specifically to add Teferi to it. It was just kind of I just had, Revenge of the Sith going in my head. You were supposed to destroy the Reclamation, not join them. Anyway, we note that Growth Spiral, Reclamation, and Teferi were already slated to rotate this fall with the release of Zendikar Rising. With that in mind, we view this set of changes as an early rotation for those cards to help freshen up the remaining summer metagame. In the case of Cauldron Familiar, we're taking the opportunity not only to improve the metagame short term, but also remove a balanced risk and undesirable play pattern leading into next year. We emphasize that these changes are, to a large degree, a product of the times and the current focus on digital play. We look forward to hearing community feedback on this approach, and we'll continue to keep an eye on the metagame going forward. Yep, like I said, that's the reason for the cat oven combo ban. That makes sense to me. Makes a lot more sense than banning it because of its problematic nature in paper, which it isn't. Because I would argue there are more problematic cards in the sacrifice deck, like, say, Mayhem Devil or Woe Strider, Priest of the Forgotten Gods, Claim the Firstborn, any number of other things in the sack deck that are a lot more powerful and a lot more problematic than Cauldron Familiar. But getting rid of it does improve the gameplay of Arena significantly, so that makes sense. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about Pioneer too much, but I do want to see what they have to say about Kethis the Hidden Hand. So, yeah. Right. Yes. Okay, so they don't say anything about it in particular, but like I said, The Kethis combo deck is also problematic. Well, not really problematic, but it's very prevalent in Historic. And with how similar Historic is becoming to Pioneer, that it will very much be Pioneer before we know it, that is something to look out for. So if you're a Kethis combo player, get your jollies in now before the next couple months where Historic basically becomes Pioneer, and then it could very well be banned. Okay, so looking through this, Reclamation and Teferi Time Raveler are suspended in Historic, which again is not a final thing. They want to give it a chance. They want to see, given that Historic is a digital-only format, they're thinking they want to see how the metagame looks without them, and then make the decision on whether it's fully banned or not, or just suspended. All right. Might be time for breakfast after this. Anyway. All right. Brawl. Teferi Time Raveler is one of the most played commanders in Brawl, appearing in over 10% of games, and he has one of the highest win rates. In addition, we see a similar impact in Brawl to that described in other formats. For that reason, Teferi Time Raveler is banned in Brawl. Now, I'm not a huge Brawl player, but that makes sense that Teferi would be a common commander, because it's only 3 mana, and I'm just imagining an Azorius control deck where you are guaranteed to have Teferi in your starting hand. It's like the Companions problem, right? That having that powerful and problematic of a card in your starting hand every time, so you just know, well, I know what I'm doing turn 3, that makes that deck very powerful and very problematic. So I get why they did that. This little blurb was kind of important too. In the past, we've given a 1-week advance notice for updates to the banned and restricted list. Because of the increased focus on digital play environments during this time period, we're choosing to forego that advance notice and roll out these changes as soon as possible. This isn't necessarily indicative of how we'll announce and implement in the future, and we're continuing to look at how we balance giving players advance notice versus staying agile with respect to changing metagames. Unfortunately, this decision doesn't strike me as being particularly agile, because Reclamation and Teferi have been problematic from the word go, pretty much. So I don't know if I agree with the idea of them being like, oh, this is a problem right now, we need to act on it. It's been a problem for a long time. I think the agility aspect of it is, wow, this has really gotten out of hand. We need to do something now. So that's your agility, I guess. That's not what I would think of as agility, but them just realizing that this has gone too far and they need to jump on it right now. Anyway, so those are the bans. What do you think? Did they get it? Did Wizards get it right with those bans? Do you not think any of those cards should have been banned? Do you think some other cards should have gone along with them? Do you think Muxus should be banned in Historic? I know I play the Goblin deck a lot. You see the Goblin deck a lot, especially in best of 1 Historic queues. But I don't know. Getting a nice rousing dialogue on Muxus could be fun in the comment section. Anyway, so if you like this type of content, smash that like button, subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment down in the comment section. Tell me if you like this video or what you think about these ban announcements. And of course, share it around with your friends. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Hook and Push. And this is Will with Hook and Push Gaming signing off. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you later.